Hello, 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 Banange. Welcome, 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 welcome everybody to the Revolutionary Spa. Your host, Sophia Sebi. It's about our mindset, the revolutionary mindset. How are you all doing? I say greetings to those on Twitter, greetings to those on Facebook, greetings to those on YouTube. Greetings, all those on UNN Radio as well. Greetings and welcome. This show, as always, it's about the revolutionary mindset. It's about the revolutionary self, purposeful action. What does that mean? It means that we need to change our mindset to be able to engage in a revolutionary Uganda. How are we going to do that? We need to change our mindset in terms of how we behave. Everything that we do in behavior, in word, in actions, we need to show that we are a revolutionary self. And whatever we do needs to be purposeful and it needs to be intentional. So, greetings, welcome to all of you to the Revolutionary Spa. Your host, Sophia Sebi. I'm going to stick to speaking English because I understand that at least many of you will understand what it is that I'm saying. And welcome again. I just want to remind everybody we did have our shows were normally on a Friday from 6:30, and today is Saturday. I know, but we're trying to figure out something what works for this show, and of course what works for all of us. Because remember, we volunteer our time, so not all the time we're able to stick to the day that we say we're going to be airing a particular show. Now, yet this time, I'm hoping that when we try, we will figure out and have a fit of what the show, of what is the best time for the show. But at this point in time, do forgive us. Do continue to watch UNN. We're on UNN TV. We're on radio. We're on online. We have UNN Times. We have UNN Radio. You can find that at UNN at getunn/radio, or you can find us at UNN Times. That's getunn.com. Of course, we do have all the other channels that are open, and I'm hoping that wherever you are, greetings, good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everybody. How has your week been? I hope you've had a lovely week. I hope to God that He has kept you safe, most importantly, healthy. As we start our show, I just like to just offer greetings and just a reminder and a prayer, gratitude, being grateful. What do we need to be grateful about? As we move on to our presentation today, as always, I really want to be bringing you things that can get us thinking, that can provoke our mindset. As you can see, I'm in a different location today, but hopefully nothing will come in my way to be here with you for about an hour. As always, I'm always here for about an hour on the Revolutionary Spa, and talking about our mindset. But of course, all the time, like I said, we need to be grateful. We need to say some prayers. We need to be grateful to the Almighty or to the spiritual being, whatever your faith is in, whatever you believe in. You need to be able to be grateful. Stop and say, what am I grateful for today? As we keep moving on to through our slides, we'll be talking about our mindset. But as we move on next, I just want to go through prayer, gratitude. What are you grateful for? What is going on in your life that you are grateful for? We are here, in my view, we are here for growth. We are here for evolution, to grow, to change, to transform. And therefore it is important to acknowledge those we grow with, all those who come on UNN, all those that you meet along the way, along the journey called life. We are here to be purposeful, to be intentional about what we do. We can no longer be haphazard. Everything that we do, everything that you do, that I do, that we do as a unit, we need to be purposeful and intentional. And UNN is there for that reason. Being purposeful, not haphazard, as in ekigwa kye kibeerawo. The reason why we bring you shows or informative shows, educative shows, or lectures, as you call them, the Harvard, UNN being like a classroom, like an educational platform. It's an educational, it's motivational, it's inspirational. We do not want to be here to just talk without a purpose, without a reason, without being intentional. So everything, like Prince Chimbugwe this week was saying, we all work together jointly to be able to bring you these shows. I'm not going to talk about the shows that Prince Chimbugwe talks about. I'm not going to talk about what Desire talks about. I know they might be similar, but I am going to be all about the self-purposeful action. What can we do as a person? What can you do as an individual in the collective to be able to say that I am putting a pence or two, or I am part of the puzzle. What are you doing? So we are here for growth, evolution, and therefore it's important we acknowledge what those people we grow with. Who are you growing with? Who are you I suppose sharing information with? Who are you associating with? Every one of us is valuable. So I extend my greetings first to the Almighty for enabling us to come together in the first place. Special thanks to all those that came before us, the elders present and past. Of course, my colleagues at UNN TV, known and unknown, but especially those giving their time, all those that give their time every day without ceasing, especially behind the scenes, our producers, those who work on the social media platforms, those who ensure that everything is working as it should. All UNNians for trusting and believing in UNN's vision, all those who continue to contribute to the Ugandan revolution. It can be emotionally, practically, financially, or otherwise, all supporters of fundamental and revolutionary change. All UNNians, including every single one of you I have not mentioned or I may not be aware of, that as long as you know you're doing something, you're building our nation, you're building for a revolutionary Uganda. We do not want necessarily a new Uganda or change Uganda, but we want a revolutionary. We want to change. Everything needs to be turned upside down on its head. So remember, it is about the collective, not about me. So every time you think about what can I get from here, maybe think about what can I do to bring to this table, to the revolutionary table. So as we go through our slides today, like I said, I love being visual. So I bring the visualization to those who are not able to probably maybe listen, but can see. It's important that at least you understand what it is I'm talking about. So food for thought. We must learn to look after our own before we think of others coming to help our own. If we don't look after ourselves, someone else will. And how are they going to do that? Someone else is going to bring about their ideology. Someone else is going to bring about their culture. Someone is going to bring about their way of life, as you have had all the historical and geographical lessons of what has happened to Uganda and up to now, from the time, the formation of Uganda to now. What has happened? Someone else has brought their way of life and imposed it on us. So how do we do it that we don't end up in the same state whereby someone else is bringing their way of life on us? We need to to know, to have knowledge, to have wisdom to use that knowledge. If you know better, you do better. It's all about being Ubuntu. It's Ubuntu. As you know, I've used that term many times. As we move on, I've used that term many times. Ubuntu is about us as a collective. You are because I am. We are because you are. So remember, food for thought is Ubuntu. Everything that you do is not in isolation. We're all together. Nothing is ever in isolation. So as I call upon our, we move on to the next slide, whereby I want you to have a visual of what I'm saying, so that you can understand Ubuntu together. One puzzle cannot make the whole. It is a whole. It is about a whole. Small pieces. It's small pieces of the puzzle that make a whole. We are all connected to the big picture. We are all connected. We are all connected. Where we go one, we go all. I don't know if you've heard about that term, but it's a term that's been, it's been going on around for some time, and it's really about the Great Awakening movement is emerging where you were. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? When you look at the COVID situation, how have the politicians really used the COVID situation to work for them? What was the lockdown used for? Was it for us or for them? Was it something that was driving someone's agenda or the agenda of the people? When I say the people, us. When you look at the Ugandan situation, how did the pandemic, how did the lockdown work? Was it for the Ugandans or against the Ugandans? And when you look at the education system, did the lockdown really work for us? When you leave what you need, when you leave the things for someone else to do for you, they bring about their own ideology, their own change. How did that happen in the education system? We left it to someone else to care, to worry about. But the children that we were supposed to be educating, those are our children. How did you leave the education system? How have we left it for someone else to worry about and not us? What if we take control of our education system? We do homeschool, we sabotage those education and establishments that are for profit. So all of this, it doesn't come by just by accident. It's not haphazard. It comes by because you are being purposeful and intentional. It comes by because your mindset is changing. Your thought process is changing. When you change your thought process, your behavior changes. When we change our thought process, our behavior changes. It's about transformation. Revolution. It's about transformation. We cannot say we want revolution Uganda, but we're doing the same things all of the time. Start where you are now. It is not about waiting until I will wait until the circumstances, the conditions change. You are the one to change the conditions because you have the power in you. Change is from out inside, not from the outside. So if you remember, it is about the self-purposeful action. It's a revolutionary transformation. Be purposeful. As we get to move on, as we go through our topic today, we get to move on. Just like this quote says, evil is the absence of good, not the opposite. When you look at the sort of our behavior, when we don't do something, when we omit, when we ignore what is going on around us, it does not mean that we are being it does not mean that we're doing good. It means that we're doing evil. We're letting evil, we're creating the space for evil to come. So when you as some of the maybe church leaders, some of the politicians, some of the leaders, church leaders, for instance, community leaders, tribal leaders, some elites, the elites, if you look the other way, it does not mean that actually something does not exist. It just means that you are creating evil. Evil is the absence of good. If you do not do good, evil is superseding. Evil is superseding. So I encourage you, I call upon all of you to do whatever you need to do, whatever you need to do in your own lives to ensure that you do good. Help thy neighbor. Someone is calling out for support. It does not have to be monetary. And this is where we're going into our topic today. Our topic today, main topic, is about a poverty mindset. It is about a poverty mindset. So a poverty mindset is the root of all. You can complete the sentence yourself. If we can move on into our topic today, is a poverty mindset is the root of all. You complete it however you want to complete it. Poverty is the result of spiritual warfare. I know most of you might be thinking poverty is about physical, it's about the absence of money, of material things, but far from it. When we look at Proverbs, I'm quoting this because most of us are, believe in the Bible, or even if we don't believe in the Bible, but a lot of the values that we live by, they're about Christianity, they're about having faith in the Bible, in the God of the Bible. So Proverbs 20, chapter 13, Proverbs chapter 20, verse 13. Do not love sleep, or you will know poverty. Keep your eyes open and have your fill of food. My own translation in this particular verse, it just means that do not sleep, do not look away, do not ignore, do not not be active in the things that you want to change, in the things that are important to you. Do not divert from your vision. The vision is a revolutionary Uganda. How are we going to realize that vision? We need to keep focused, not sleeping. We will know poverty. We will continue to know poverty as long as we are asleep. Let's keep our eyes open. And it's not necessarily because your eyes are open, but your eyes can be actually physically open, but you are asleep and you're closed because you're going through life haphazardly. You're not being intentional. We are not being purposeful. What can we do? We need to change our mindset. How do we do that? Listening to positive messages, empowering messages, listening to those who came before us, who have wisdom. Of course, listening to UNN, because we have come and many of you have said, if UNN wasn't here, what would we be doing? That's all about mindset. You have a different mindset from what you had about a year ago. And those who are new to UNN, welcome. We welcome everybody here. There is no discrimination, no prejudice. If you want to constructively be contributing to the topics and the conversations, by all means do that. Do not be abusive, because that is not wisdom. So do not love sleep, or you will know poverty. Keep your eyes open and have your fill of food. Food is not necessarily food as in physical food. It can be intangible too. Just like I said, food for thought. Food for thought is a thought, can be food. Food for the soul, like that saying goes. Yeah, let's keep moving on. So when we try to understand poverty, what do we need to do? Of course, we need to understand the definitions of poverty. What are the definitions of poverty? One, for instance, this is from a Joseph Rowntree Foundation. This is a UK organization that deals with a lot of social cohesion, social inclusion, and looks at the poverty in the UK and brings about statistics and so on and so forth. But their definition, poverty is when your resources are well below your minimum needs. Look at our situation in Uganda, how often our resources are below our minimum needs. Everywhere you look, the majority, at least, we have a small minority who are enjoying the benefits. But when you look at the whole, the majority, we can truly say that we are in a poverty-stricken country. But yet, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are poor. We are not poor. We are far from poor, because we are a rich country. Poverty is when your resources are well below your minimum needs. We can look at it, resources, we can look at it from this perspective. Resources of education, of acquiring knowledge. How many libraries do we have? How many bars do we have? So we have less libraries, but we have a lot of bars, and the bars are about being consumers. We are going to bars to consume. We are not producing. When we move on to our second definition of what poverty is, so poverty is also the state of being extremely poor. We can fall under all of these as a society of Uganda. The state of being inferior in quality or insufficient in amount. So the state of being inferior in quality, when I talk about quality, look at the quality of the roads, for instance. Look at the quality of our social care system, our healthcare system. So we continue to move on. Lastly, this is the last definition of poverty, which I felt you can look up what exactly poverty is all about. As I say, I bring about a topic on UNN, we bring up something, you do your research too. It's important, because that's how you're going to learn. We do not learn just by listening, we learn by doing. So poverty is the state of having few material possessions or little income. Poverty can have diverse social, economic, and political causes and effects. Like I was talking about it, we know that in our society, we do have a lot of social, we have a lot of economic, we have a lot of political causes and effects because of the result of poverty. Look at the corruption that we have. It's an epidemic in Uganda. So a poverty mindset is the root of all, as our topic today, says. We need to change our mindset, change our circumstances, change our life, and that's how we can change our life for good. If we move on, Like I said, poverty, there's different definitions of poverty. But first, poverty can be relative. It's dependent on where you are and how you look at life or place value. Where do you place value? It may be poverty, which is tangible, material things, or intangible. It can be around spiritual knowledge. So, in this topic, I'm generalizing what poverty is all about, and it's going to be a mix and or mishmash of all the things that define poverty. And talking about poverty of all kinds. So, what makes us have less of? We think we have less of. We are wealthy, but we cannot acknowledge that wealth. Instead, what are we doing? We instead look towards something else that we think that will satisfy us. The things we value or want to acquire, especially when we talk about tangible poverty, money, material things. So to understand poverty, we must also understand its definition. There are several, as I have explained already, but there's two measures that poverty can be measured by two things. It can be measured by two things. But before we go into the measuring of poverty, I want actually, if we could go back a little bit, there's two things that can measure poverty, which is absolute poverty, and you also have relative poverty. So when we talk about absolute poverty, what does that mean? It's about comparing income against the amount needed to meet basic personal needs, such as food, clothing, or shelter. And what about relative poverty? It measures when a person cannot meet a minimum level of living standards. How many of the population in Uganda is not able to meet a minimum level of living standards compared to others in the same time and place? When you look at the rich and poor, there's a big gap. And who are those rich? Relative poverty, it can vary from one country to another as well. When we talk about UK, particularly in UK, we talk a lot about relative poverty, because UK does not mean that doesn't have poverty at all. It's just that it's not the extreme, it's more relative poverty. So when we go to our next, we move on. We how can we characterize, what are the characteristics of a poverty mindset? I hope you understand what I'm talking about when I talk about poverty. A poverty mindset. This is the topic today we're talking about. A poverty mindset is the root of all, and you can complete that sentence as you wish. However, we also need to find what are the characteristics of a poverty mindset. What is it in you? Which one of those characteristics are you? Or which one do you resonate with? Do you resonate with number one or two? When we talk about characteristics of a poverty mindset, when we say exchange, for instance, a lot of us are in all of this. We fall under all of these categories. The majority of us, we fall under all of these characteristics. You know why? Because we exchange our time for money. When we go to work, when we want someone else to, when we're waiting on a paycheck, every single end of month you're waiting for a paycheck, or single week you wait for a paycheck. What does that mean? That is a poverty mindset. We exchange time for money, the paycheck, the job. You want to be employed. We want to clock up how many hours so that you get maybe overtime. You get paid for overtime. What does that all mean? You want to work for an organization. You want to have a boss, and so on and so forth. There's so many other. When we talk about consumer than producer, if you're a consumer all the time than being a producer, so the consumer mindset is about we concentrate on how we earn to spend. You want to go work for time for a few hours. Then when you get those few hours, you can put in your savings or bank account, and then you can go and spend it. Most of us are in this category. However, the difference is that when you have the knowledge, then make the changes that we need. We all need to make changes if we're going to be in a revolutionary Uganda, something different. We're not going to be waiting for that paycheck. For instance, look at the politicians. What are they doing? It's a poverty mindset, waiting to be paid, waiting for the government payouts, waiting for a taxpayer to make them rich, instead of saying how can we create so that we can have we can have a system that we are not dependent on. We don't depend on the system to give us petrol money. We don't depend on the system to give us a car to go and do the job that we're supposed to do or we were elected to do. And this whole mindset about victimhood, we're always victims, come and help us. How does that, what is that mindset about? I am a victim, come and help. Why are we not survivors? We're survivors. We think we can courageously stand and say we can do this. We're not victims of the situation. How about lack of optimism? A poverty mindset always lacks optimism. It's about being pessimistic all the time, being negative, not positive, not thinking that, you know what, no matter my circumstances, no matter where I am now, that doesn't define me to be where I need to go or where I need to be or what I will become. Because you must be rich in your mindset, you must be wealthy in your mindset for you to be able to let go, to not worry about the circumstances. We shouldn't worry about, oh, the roads are so bad, so I cannot get from A to B. They have not created jobs for us, so we're just going to maybe look at the other, who else can employ me? What about another country employing me? Instead of me saying, no, 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 the jobs have not been created. How can we create our own jobs where we are now? And the poverty mindset also is, it looks at something being outside of themselves. We always looking for other people. Remember when we were looking at someone else, please come and rescue us, we're looking at the West to come and save us from the situation. We're not looking at how can we save ourselves from the situation. It's always about, please, immediate, the ship will be docking soon and we will be saved. We are not going to be saved. We need to look within ourselves. We cannot look at outside forces all the time. We need to look at the self. How can I impact the masses? How can I make a difference? How can I continue to take the message around, the message that we have here today, the message that, maybe you too coming on the live, why not? And thank you so much to those all who have changed their mindset, who are changing their mindset, because that is an abundant mindset. Instead of blaming someone else, let us do something ourselves. So a poverty mindset will blame others for their failures. It does not want to take responsibility, always complaining about how their life is bad, how my life is bad, how my life is not so good. You know, We lack optimism. We always find an excuse to say why things are not working. We look for help from outside of ourselves all the time. I'm going to say it until I can say it no more. I know some of you might be saying you are saying that because you're over that side, but no. I know I have poverty mindset because I grew up in the society of Uganda, a community in Uganda which I learned from. All my behaviors were learned at childhood. They were not learned necessarily when I was much older or at this age. Most of my behaviors have been learned from childhood. Do you know the saying that goes, money doesn't grow on trees, for instance? Every time we say things like that, money doesn't grow on trees, or I'm poor, or poor me, or we need money, or I don't have money. All the time we are always lamenting about what we don't have instead of appreciating and seeing abundance all around us where we are. We are a wealthy community. You know why we're a wealthy community? Because we have a mindset. We have a rich culture. We have our wealth in the land, in the assets that we have. We have the natural resources. Because we are sleeping all the time, it means that we are not awake enough to pay attention to say, how do we take control of our resources? We lack the motivation. We always feel like someone else needs to come and rescue us. The victimhood. Always someone is going to be, to make us feel better. No, no one's coming. It is all you. We need to change from within, not from out. We're always blaming, I don't earn enough, for instance. Even if they gave you $1 million, you probably wouldn't know what to do with it because of our poverty mindset. So, which one are you? Which one are you? Are you a person who is exchanging time for money? How can you change that situation? I am not saying you can do it overnight. What I'm saying is that it is possible. Are you a consumer than a producer? Are you playing victim all the time and not a survivor? Do you lack optimism? You're always pessimistic. You're always doubting. When you say you believe in God, shame on us. We are saying we believe in God. What does that mean? Truly believing in God. Muslim, Hindu, Christian, Catholic, Protestant, whatever, born again, whatever you may be. If you're saying you are truly believing in the God, maybe perhaps we need to really read a bit more of the Quran and read a bit more of the Bible. What does it say about a poverty mindset? Are you always looking for help from outside than looking for help from the inside? I will leave it there, and maybe this is food for thought. We really need to really rethink, reevaluate, reinvent exactly how we feel. When we look at the Rich Dad, I'm not sure some of you might have read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And this is just a talk, a little bit of an example of a bit of what the mindset is. I am not saying, being rich is all about having the physical money. I'll repeat it again. Wealth is not about the physical money, because money is paper. It is the value we place on that paper that makes it more valuable. And the values come from within, from the society around us. So I think we need to really rethink, how do we value? We value because we're thinking when we accumulate a lot of, things, we are much more, richer or much more comfortable. But it's still not enough. Most of the time, it's not enough. However much money you have in the bank account, it still does not, it's not enough. You still want some more and more. Then what does that say about a poverty mindset? So Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he's Robert Kiyosaki, who has written different books. But this specific book, if you haven't read it, do go out and read it. It was a book written in 1997 by Robert Kiyosaki and Sharon Lecher. It advocates the importance of financial literacy. We really don't know much about financial literacy. When we were in school, were they teaching us? Does school really teach us to have an abundant mindset? Or is it teaching us to have a poverty mindset? What does that mean? It means that we are going to go to school, read the books, cram books even, get the marks, tests, and someone, ticks gets 80%, and oh my goodness, yes, I've done so well. But it does not necessarily guarantee that you're going to do well, you're going to have an abundant mindset, or you're going to be wealthy. By getting 100%, it doesn't make any difference. So in my example, I have learned not to place my children or daughter or any children that are careful, place value on those tests that we have through, the testing of, or how much have you got in maths or English, or, I just want to teach my children an abundant mindset, that whatever we do, wherever we are able to be wealthy, to create wealth. We do not need to move from one place to another, because you are moving with your mindset. Remember, you are moving with your poverty mindset. And as long as you still have your poverty mindset, you are still going to create the same results. Regardless of where you move, you can move to the richest country in money-wise, like, financial. You can move to a country which has gold all over its streets. But as long as you have a poverty mindset, it is never going to change for you. That's what I realized. It was never going to change for me. When we think that we are always, this victimhood, we always need to be rescued. For instance, when we think about, why do we have so many charity organizations? Why do we have so many charity organizations? Okay, as we move on, why do we have so many charity organizations in Uganda? Why are we still poor? So let's play this, a little bit of this video from Robert Kiyosaki himself, and see what, if it resonates with you. Does it resonate with you? Are you learning something from it? I know I'm learning. So whilst we wait for our video,
lazy people always say, I can't afford it. I don't have the money. That's why they're poor. They have a poor mindset. So instead of figuring out how to raise money, it's just really easy to be a loser. And I call losers. It pisses them off. Because we all have the power, if we wanted to not be poor if we learned how to raise money. Lazy people always say, I can't afford it. I don't have the money. That's why they're poor. They have a poor mindset. So instead of figuring out how to raise money, it's just really easy to be a loser. And I call losers. It pisses them off. Because we all have the power, if we wanted to to not be poor if we learned how to raise money.
So, as we really reflect on that video or that from Robert Kiyosaki, I'm bringing this example not because it's the best example, but I know that a lot of people have learned from this. He's got the experience, and a lot of people have sort of got the motivation to keep going and get themselves out of the poverty mindset. Like I was talking about the charity organizations. Why the many charity organizations in Uganda? Why are we still poor? Why have we not got out of that sort of victimhood? If there's been charity organizations for time memorial, there's been so many, and there's still so many being created, coming to rescue us as we continue to play victim. As we continue to play victim and not survivors, and saying we can do it on our own. What exactly are we gaining from these endless charity organizations? Yes, they might solve our immediate problem, but they're not going to solve our continuous and our lasting problem. And what is that? Our lasting problem? Our problem is the poverty mindset. We never see opportunity in our adversities. We always see sort of dilemma. We always see problems. We see challenges. So we get stuck in this mindset. The same thing happens. Everything is connected. So the same thing happens when we think about how we see our politicians, how we are governed. We let someone's ideology come in to say they're going to rescue us. That is a poverty mindset. Until we are ready to, we stop being beggars, until we stop being thinking that the grass is greener on the other side, we are still going to be suffering the same fate. Even when a new leader comes in, as long as the society that we are in, our own mindset, you and me who make the society and the communities, as long as we still think that way, imagine how much land do we have in abundance. We can be consumers, we can be producers because we have abundant land. We cannot have an excuse that land is being taken, but the land that's not being taken, what is being done on that land? How are you feeding your family from that land? How about growing your own food? Instead of saying, I will buy it from the supermarket, I will buy it from the market. It sounds trendy and very, that is the thing, the irony of us when we think that supermarkets are better than growing your own food because we think it's trend. I wish I could get, something from my garden, but I cannot because I don't have access to that land. But if you're still home and you still have a piece of land, even if you don't have a piece of land, how about, going and getting boxes or whatever it is, because you have a patio somewhere, to start growing your own food, the greens, the tomatoes, the vegetables, the onions. It's that simple. It's the small things. Let's not look at the big things. Wanting to walk before you can crawl. That is all the poverty mindset. When we think that the education system is what is going to get us from a poverty mindset, or poverty, when we talk about tangible, make us rich, we are wrong. Because every member of society is valuable. You and me are valuable. Our talents are valuable. They make we get education at home, first of all, before we are programmed with the book education, the idea of the Western education. So we need to think twice. We need to think real hard about how each one of us is going to change and look at their mindset. How is it? What characteristic are you of your poverty mindset? Are you the one who's always having no money, who's always says, I have no money, who always borrows money, who always wants someone else to foot the bill? Are you comparing yourself with someone else who has it already? I just want to give you a bit of an example here, an analogy, which from the story of the Bible, the story of Joseph. Okay, Joseph was one of 12 brothers, was one of, I think, was the 13, and he had 12 brothers who sold him into slavery by his own family. Joseph had characteristics of a dreamer, of a leader. He was humble, he was strategic, he was generous, patient. So despite his adversities, he overcame and sat on the throne as a governor, as a leader. So he did not complain about his adversities, him being sold into slavery. But he had the faith that all things work for good. That is real faith. All things work for good. And what happened to him? Despite of all the mountains, the challenges, the rivers, he crossed. I mean, he crossed in his probably mind or physically. He still came on the throne. So we just need to remember that not everything that feels good is good, doesn't mean good, and everything that feels bad doesn't necessarily mean bad. This is one quote that I got from Myron Golden. He's one of the motivational, he's an American motivational speaker, or he's done quite a lot around mindsets. You can Google, you can YouTube, he's got videos there. Myron, Myron, Golden. So everything that feels good doesn't mean good, and everything that feels bad does not mean bad. Our faith is tested, and especially this time in Uganda. As a Ugandan people, our faith is really tested. Even when all seems to be going against the odds for telling the truth, or Joseph still, he still went. He was sold into slavery by his own brothers. How many have had a poverty mindset and decided to go for pastures new, greener pastures, or wanting to feel good? We will have so many temptations. Joseph had temptations, and he could have been corrupt, but he decided not to be corrupt because, for instance, when a gold cup was put in his sack, he was thrown into jail, but he persevered. If Joseph followed the crowd by resisting change or challenge, he would have never been a leader. When we go to a story of Moses, if Moses did not believe in the voice within for the Red Sea to part, it would have been impossible. It's impossible to comprehend or imagine that the Red Sea would part. And maybe the Israelites would have completely died because they were being chased by Pharaoh. If we do not follow everyone, with the mindset of the grass is greener on the other side, such as selling off our most valuable possessions to go abroad, maybe our life would have turned out or turn out differently. I know it's not easy. It is not an easy decision. By all means, it is not an easy decision. But we really must look within. I just want to give you a few of statistics, for instance. If we move on, and statistics, severe poverty will lead to desperation, especially in this. It surely leads to desperation, because if you look at this chart, for instance, it's the world's regions by total wealth. Look at how our wealth is in terms of when you look at Africa. Look at the little margin, look at the small margin, look North America's wealth, Europe's wealth, Asia Pacific, China, then you've got Latin America, then you've got India, but look at our, compared to the rest of the world. I mean, these statistics might not necessarily be true, because we know there's a lot of manipulation of numbers. We know there's a lot of manipulation when it comes to Africa, that Africa, the idea, when, everybody else wants to paint a picture of us in Africa, we are poverty stricken. Whilst they come and take our resources, natural resources, because every country, in terms of production, in terms of producing phones, in terms of producing cars, they all most of the time need material things, the raw material, and that most of it is Africa raw material. But we are not producers, we are consumers. When you look at that, what do you see? That really paints a picture of what we are. Uganda is in that African little percentage of Africa compared to the rest of the world. Okay, we move on as we come to, we are coming to the conclusion of our show today. But if we move on, when we look at the for instance, the UN's Sustainable Developmental Goal 1 is about no poverty. But whose agenda is that? Is that really our agenda when everything else is done sort of against us? A lot of the policies being developed, a lot of all of the, the sort of nice little, when they sit around the nice table, what is it for? Who is it for? Is it for us? As long as we have a poverty mindset, as long as we're consumers and not producers, we are going to continue living a poverty mindset. And that is going to come out in the behaviors. It's going to come out in our societies. Remember, thoughts become things. We think by having a poverty mindset, our thoughts, everything that we have in our thinking becomes true in our surroundings, our environment. And that's where you see our environment looks like poverty stricken, because as the people have not changed our mindset. When we move on, please. So you can go on the UN's website. It should be able to give you a bit more information about I think it's about 12 goals or 10 goals, sustainability goals. You'll be able to list every one of them. So like I keep saying to you all, nothing for us without us. Unless we are together, unless we get our hands dirty, and I don't mean that by physical, it means about changing the way we live and starting from the minute, you and I, the micro to the macro. We cannot change the macro until we change ourselves the micro. As I leave you, we all need to be able to share in that national cake. The resources, the oil, the minerals, we do need to share in that. But we cannot share in that until we change our mindset of stop, things like the corruption, thinking that we can bribe us our way to the top. We must reconfigure our minds to break free from having things all the time. We need to be spiritually attuned to our environment to know what is right for us. Not always associating the wealth to tangible things. Wealth can be tangible and it can be intangible as well. So the main learning from this is that our mindset leads to being beggars. We're going to be beggars. We're going to be slaves working for others, being used, working on someone else's conditions or idea. As long as we're exchanging our time for money, because the time, if you don't have time to think, you are not going to be able to create an environment, a mindset that allows you to be a creator, not a producer, or not a consumer. Sorry. We are going to be on to someone else's time rules. As I conclude, next week we are going to be talking about 10 stages of genocide, or 10 phases of genocide. If you look up the 10 phases of genocide, we can come and I'll elaborate more on that. I'm hoping that you have done your homework as well. It's important. But remember, knowledge is not power, but applied knowledge is power. Do your part, get involved for a revolutionary change. Change is not going to come by someone giving it to you. Change needs to be taken. And that is taking your power back. Your mindset is your power. So good evening, good afternoon, good morning to every single one of you. Thank you for being on UNN. Those who are going through this again, we're here every Saturday at 6:30 or a little earlier, depending on exactly what we're doing through the day, but we will endeavor to come between 5 and 6 or 5 and 7. But we are going to still come and talk about our mindset. We are through our mindset series. This is Revolutionary Power, which is a revolutionary self-purposeful action. Change your mindset, change your life, change your circumstances, change you for good. And that only starts up here, and it starts within, not outside. It's not outside forces. Thank you very much for being on here. It is your host. My name is Sophia Sebi, and I'll see you next week. Have a blessed week. God bless. We thank the Almighty for everything. Thank you. Exercising the legal duty in accordance to Article 3 of Uganda's constitution. If not for Mama Uganda, then where would you be? How dare you keep silent? Speak out and speak up. If not for Bobby Wine, NUP National Unity Platform, yourself, at least for just humanity's sake, we must continue to be resolute and focused to speak up and speak out for those with no voice, despite the fear, torture and intimidation. A lot of diversions will always be there due to the dictatorial leaderships. My brothers and sisters, I call upon you, fear not. Every Ugandan life matters. Hashtag I am not a spectator. Hashtag we are removing a dictator. Thank you.